Poststructuralism. Poststructuralism is based on the desire to question structures of authority. In this video, we will discuss various aspects of poststructuralism. Derrida's deconstruction is considered to be an important aspect of poststructuralism. What does it mean to deconstruct? If we think that the word construct means to put something together, then we can think of deconstructing as taking apart that which has been built. The idea of deconstructing a text is a central practice of post-structuralist reading. Literally, deconstruction means to take the text apart. This should not be confused with the idea of criticizing a text or destroying it. Rather, it represents a way of analyzing the text by breaking it down. It is a process of reading a text to discover what is hidden within it. Post-structuralist criticism looks for the obscured or denied meanings within the text. At the center of this is the idea that a text may not be saying what it seems to be saying or what we think it is saying, but it also may not be saying what the author might have directed it towards. The text carries an alternative meaning, one that can reveal new insights into the text's context. The task of this kind of criticism is to look for these alternative meanings, for the contradictions and inconsistencies within the text. In addition to this, a deconstructive reading can look for the silences in the text, the things that are unspoken but which we might expect. Two terms closely related to deconstruction are difference and trace. Difference means both difference and deferral. Derrida uses the term difference to suggest that the idea of the relationship between the signifier and the signified implied by structuralism is never complete. There is always an element of deferral, an element of reference to other words and meanings. It causes a disruption to this process. Take, for example, the word cat. Is it really possible to imagine this word without imagining dog or tiger or mouse? Derrida suggests that these other words are the additional signifiers that disrupt the straightforward relationship that could make meaning transparent. By paying attention to this in literature, we can consider the layers of meaning at work in a text and what lies unspoken beneath obvious meanings. Trace suggests that words are haunted by what they do not mean. The trace or track that readers can uncover and follow to examine the meaning often contradicts ideas that may be suggested by a text. Influenced by psychoanalysis, such traces are neither intentional nor accidental. Trace exists always as what is present and yet unseen in any use of language. One of Derrida's famous statements is that there is nothing outside the text. Does Derrida mean that all that matters is the text? This statement reflects the post-structuralist belief that language is an unstable entity and that we cannot really get to the essence of reality through it. He also writes, there has never been anything but writing. Derrida here suggests that we are trapped within language and the only reality we know is through language. However, because language is flawed, shifting, and imperfect, the reality language describes is eventually elusive. Foucault introduces the concept of discourse. Discourse is a post-structuralist term for modes of knowledge. Discourse, like ideology, refers to a mode of knowledge or way of speaking. But unlike ideology, it is not implicitly connected to power or influence. Foucault also discusses the concept of agency, the ability of the individual to act freely in their own life without state coercion or the threat of violence. His concept of counter-history includes silenced and marginalized subjects. Foucault employs genealogical approach in his works. In Discipline and Punish, the focus is on the criminal and the prison. The history of sexuality focuses on intimate relationships and socially unacceptable desires. Genealogy is the process of creating new histories to account for marginalized voices and events not normally covered in official histories. In his essay Of Other Spaces, Foucault calls us to reconsider our engagement with place by outlining imaginary spaces. He suggests that the contemporary preoccupation with history should not neglect the centrality or spatiality to life. Time, Foucault argues, exists only in the context of space. We can have history only if it is located and place is ever present. He suggests that we can think both about imagined places, utopias, and real places that achieve the possibilities of utopian thinking. These places that achieve possibilities of utopian thinking he calls heterotopias. Hetero means mixed, refers to the diversity evident in these spaces and their function as combining real physical spaces. He gives us three examples of heterotopias in the spaces of the boat, the brothel, and the colony. In these locations, difference is confronted and possibility of transgression is created. Another important concept discussed within poststructuralism is the idea of intertextuality. Intertextuality refers to the relationship, intentional or unintentional, between one literary text to another. Christopher suggests that no text is ever just itself. It is always in relation to other texts, consciously or not, through processes of parody, allusion, and pastiche. Deleuze embodies an anarchic and disruptive strand in post-structuralist thinking. Along with Guattari, he introduced ideas such as body without organs, deterritorialization, and becoming. One important concept relevant to literature is rhizome. A rhizome is an underground stem that puts out a complex system of roots, unlike a normal root system. They suggest that rather than thinking about the world and questions of politics and identity in terms of roots, we might instead think in terms of the multiple pathways and the connections that rhizome represents. To approach thinking through the idea of rhizome, one must abandon hierarchies, definitions, and classifications. Instead, one celebrates difference, randomness, and chaotic interplay. This, of course, has consequences for the kind of social relations it produced. It suggests openness, tolerance, and the celebration of diversity.